Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this first in our summer school webinar series from us here at Lexplore Analytics in partnership with Katina Cochrane. If you'd like to find out more about our reading assessment tool here at Lexplore, please do contact us for an online demonstration, and we'd be more than happy to show you all the fantastic work we do here. Okay then, so on to our session this evening. As I said, this is the first in our summer school series, and it's so exciting always to get a chance to work with Katrina Cochrane. Katrina is the Director of Positive Dyslexia. She is a specialist teacher, assessor, author. She writes a lot of specialist courses. She's a trainer and runs conferences as well with her organisation, Positive Dyslexia. So it's fantastic to have her deliver these specialist series of sessions that we'll be running in the next couple of weeks. Tonight's session is going to explore and discover issues around multisensory teaching, and Katrina will take us through that shortly. So our session is 1 hour long, and we're going to have time to take questions as well. So let's hand over to Katrina for our broadcast. Hello, Katrina.
Hello, good evening. Lovely to be here for Lexplore Analytics. This is the first of 3 webinars, and next week I'm going to be talking about study skills, and then the week after about preparing your child to go back to school. So lots of exciting stuff to talk about. Today I'm going to be talking about multisensory teaching and learning, really, and it's a bit of a buzzword, isn't it? You hear it a lot about multisensory, things being multisensory, and I wanted to explore exactly what that meant and some resources that might be able to help. I can see from the poll that the majority of you, I think, are classroom teachers, which is great. We've got some parents and some learning support teachers as well, so keep adding on to that. I'd love to see your profile. Please put in any questions as we go in along, and Donna will read any out as well. And there is a bit about trying to be a bit interactive and multisensory later on, so I hope you'll be able to join in with that. So if you can find a pen and a scrap of paper, then we'll come to that a bit shortly. So we know that dyslexia affects around 10% of the population. These are very large numbers. Those of you that are classroom teachers will know that you've probably got around about 3 or 4 children in your class with dyslexia. And it affects in many different ways. I think that a lot of people still think it's around about reading and spelling, and it's not. It's so much more deeper than that. It affects phonological skills, so the skills involved in hearing things and processing information, verbal memory, short-term and long-term memory, and visual memory. And also your processing speed. These are really important things in the classroom. And we know that a lot of children have been out of the classroom for quite a long time. And actually, it's been quite good for some of them. I think a lot of the children have been able to go at their own speed at home. And it's actually been very beneficial for them. So obviously, it does affect literacy. But we also know that a lot of students don't get assessed until they're going to university. So we know they can read. What they can't read is large amounts of text, and they often can't read quickly, but they obviously can read quite well. It can affect numeracy as well, and there are a lot of new courses around dyscalculia, if anyone's interested. It can affect speech and language, and I think also sequencing. A lot of problems with sequencing where children can't do the alphabet, can't put out the alphabet. They don't know the days of the week, the months of the year. It affects their organisation. It affects things like self-esteem and motivation and behaviour. And what you find is a lot of juggling of balls. And these children are constantly juggling balls. In fact, I've just had a telephone call from an adult who's been all the way through university and is now struggling in their job. So they've been able to hold on for so long through primary school, secondary school, university, and all of a sudden it's just become too much and those balls have dropped, haven't they? So it does affect so many different areas for these children. We're going to be talking about multisensory teaching and learning later on, and sometimes things like colour and mind mapping does help with planning and organisation. But if you look at this mind map, it shows all the different difficulties that somebody with dyslexia might find, difficulties with writing, with planning. If you've got difficulties with your memory, then often I see that children, they start one essay, halfway through the essay they've forgotten which essay they're writing, and they finish a completely different essay. They have difficulty with losing their work. They have difficulty with notes, making notes, things that we take for granted that we can do very quickly and easily. Possibly some of you are taking notes as I'm talking now, and it's something we do without thinking about it. But for these children, it's something they find very, very difficult. They may have difficulty bringing the right books to the right class. They may have difficulty with telling the time, for example, or for the older child, learning to drive. And you see that quite a lot, where there's so many things coming up to a roundabout, you're having to think about so many different things, and it's too much, isn't it? And for lots of these children, you do get this overload where they're just completely overloaded. Obviously, for any kind of teaching and learning, we want it to be structured, cumulative, sequential, and multisensory. And that's very, very important in everything that we do. Knowing how each step is interrelated enables one to remember them as part of a connected whole. So if you are thinking about the classroom, if you're thinking about home, everything that you're doing should be structured, sequential, and cumulative. Multisensory teaching supports learning better because it supports memory better. And memory is often one of the things that dyslexic children have huge difficulties with. They have no difficulty with their long-term memory, for example, because they can remember how to ride a bike. They can't pull information out of that long-term memory quickly. Their short-term auditory memory is impaired. So if you're talking to them at home, overloading them with lots of instructions, or in the classroom, they're forgetting things very, very quickly. And their working memory, where they are holding information and manipulating that information, is also impaired. So they never learn their times tables, for example. Recent research shows that multisensory interactions can be exploited to yield more efficient learning of sensory information, and suggests that multisensory training programs would be the most effective for the acquisition of new skills. So this is really important. Using this multisensory teaching and learning as a way of really increasing the ability to support our memory better. If we can give learners the opportunity to do and to discover, they can make meaningful links. And we need to give the learner opportunities to explore and make those connections. Linking it to previous learning, very important. We need to ensure that the sequence of learning can always be linked back to the underlying structure and the previous learning. Revisiting that learning. And often in a busy classroom, that's really difficult, isn't it, to go over what was done beforehand last week, so that you can link and make that learning and teaching cumulative and thorough. However, it does make the learning far more easy to remember. So how do we make that learning multisensory? Now, I know that a lot of you are classroom teachers, but also this does work at home as well. So I'm going to be giving some tips and resources that work in both home and in the classroom. What is multisensory learning? Well, our brain is taking information all the time. We're seeing things, aren't we? That's the visual side of our learning. We're also hearing things. That's the auditory side. And the tactile and kinesthetic side is where we're touching and feeling things. As you're listening at the moment, you're probably sitting down. You can feel the ground beneath your feet, can't you? You can probably touch things, you're hearing things, you're seeing things. You also might be smelling things as well, and that's our olfactory sense. So the sense of smell is very important also. And also the sense of taste, gustatory, very important. So all of those 5 senses are very important. And we know that how a smell will take us back in time and help us remember things in the past. How hearing a record on the radio will make you remember a memory, won't it? So these senses are very strong and very important. But the 3 primary channels are the visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic. Okay, I'm going to try something in the next slide and see if this works. On the next slide, there's going to be 10 pictures I'm going to show you. So if you could grab that piece of paper and the pen, and I'm going to give you a minute to memorize the 10 pictures. Now, don't cheat, don't jot down any notes, just try and memorize them if you can. So I'm going to start the clock now, and here are the 10 pictures. And you've got just a minute to memorize the 10 pictures. Okay, so that's 10 seconds gone. 20 seconds gone. That's 30 seconds gone. You've got 30 seconds left. That's 45 seconds gone. You've got 15 seconds left. That's 10 seconds left. 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is now take the pen in your opposite hand to the one that you normally write with. And can you take your feet off the ground? And I'm now going to give you a minute to try and write down the names of all of the pictures, okay? Now, just put down your very first thought about the picture. Don't go into detail. Just put down anything, and I'm going to give you a minute to write down those 10 pictures starting now. Go. Okay, I think that was the minute. Hopefully you've written down something. I'm going to show you the 10 pictures again. And do put in your chat box how many pictures you got down. So those are the 10 pictures again. Did anybody get 10 out of 10? do put on if you got 10 out of 10. Did anyone find it easier to remember the cartoon of the sand timer rather than any of the other pictures?
Rena,
Right.
Sarah's let us know that she did get 10.
Oh,
Well
well
done,
done.
Sarah.
That's very impressive, Sarah. Well done. And what strategies do you remember about how to remember those 10 pictures, Sarah?
Well, we'll let Sarah. Oh, Sarah's just said a story. We've got
Good.
Natasha and one of our other listeners, 8. So we've got a few people with 8. Annie, 7. Sheila got 8. Well done, Sheila. Janice says the sand timer really does stand out for her.
Excellent. Yeah.
Lots of people with 7. Lena got 5. So
Don't worry if you didn't get very many, because I couldn't have done this. I think it's very good to have remembered them all, actually. So thinking about strategies, anyone else have a different strategy about, rather than putting them together into a story?
Poppy's saying that she did a memory game strategy,
Good,
repeating the words to herself.
good, good, excellent.
Lena's saying that the challenge for her was writing with the wrong hand.
Yes, yes. So how did that feel? How did anyone feel about the clock, for example?
Yes, and we've
At
had some
the
of
time?
those comments because the music was distracting. Yeah, the music was distracting.
Horrible.
Yeah.
So, so that was deliberate, because obviously if in the classroom you've got working memory difficulties, you can't hold on to one thing without being distracted by other things, and you just stop, don't you? You probably, if you were distracted, you just lost what you're trying to think of. So I did that deliberately to make you feel what it's like in the classroom. Obviously, if you're writing with a different hand, probably your handwriting's pretty poor as well. So if you're on the dyspraxic side, then your handwriting is going to be difficult to read often. And your feet was off the floor because, again, if you're on the dyspraxic side, you've got difficulties with balance often. So anyone else find that was quite difficult, quite challenging?
Yes, we've got comments about the clocks really affected quite a lot of the
Yes,
group tonight.
yes,
Obviously that time pressure issue, I guess.
yep, yep,
The challenge about, again, writing with the wrong hand.
yep.
We've got one of our listeners tonight saying that the way she remembered it was joining them together in groups and finding
Excellent.
links between pictures.
Excellent. So maybe the animals, chunking the animals together, chunking the people sitting the exam with the laptop. So yes, chunking is very effective, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've got somebody else, Leslie, said that she'd use the first letter of each item.
Excellent, excellent. Good.
These are very impressive strategies,
Very.
Katrina.
Especially at 10th grade as well. Well done. So it's quite interesting. I do this quite a lot with groups, and I was in a school recently, and I did this with a group of teachers, and I got them to do the 10 pictures, but this teacher put up a hand and said, I'm not doing this. And I said, well, that's fine. Why don't you want to do it? And she said, I'm not going to get 10 out of 10, so what's the point of doing it? And it really brought home to me that, if a child has said that, they would have had very short shrift from the teacher. But a lot of children feel like that way in the classroom. I'm not going to get this correct. What's the point of even trying to do something I'm going to fail at again? So lots of things to bear in mind about these things. Obviously, the music and the trying to think of things, it's all part of that overload, isn't it? If you're trying to think about your handwriting, you're trying to think about what the actual pictures were as well, bringing in mind any strategies. It's a lot, isn't it? And it does lead to that overload. But very interesting the way in which you all have those strategies to help yourself. And I think you're well on the way to knowing how to be very multisensory. Obviously, if you remember things very visually, you might have remembered the whole slide and the position of the pictures, and you're just reading off on your mind's eye the pictures from your mind's eye, aren't you? So you might be a very visual learner. If you were putting pictures into categories, like some of you were, or you made up a story, it means you're an auditory learner and you're hearing it to yourself. Kinesthetic learner would be the writing, maybe by writing out the words, the pictures that reinforce what the picture was. You may have used your fingers to think about things. Now, did anyone, and I'll ask this question, maybe Donna can help me, did anyone use more than one of those strategies, or were they mainly a visual or an auditory or a kinesthetic learner in that respect? So perhaps you could tell me if you were able to do more than one of those or just one of those.
Poppy said that she used all three.
Well done, Poppy. Very multisensory.
Yeah, Lena, visual and auditory.
Good, good.
Quite a lot of people a combination, actually, Katrina. I think most people combination visual and auditory.
Good. And what you'll find is that your learners may well be very strong visual learners, or they may be very strong auditory learners. By using that one sense by themselves, it's cutting down their effectiveness to learn. If they can use all three, then they're going to learn 3 times more effectively. So have a think. I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is that everyone uses different strategies, don't they? So what works for you might not work for somebody else that you're teaching. So use lots of different strategies in the way in which you teach, and to understand that all of these modalities are on their own are good, but if you can use all of them together, then that really helps with the learning. So, I mean, possibly what, and we're talking in the evening, but possibly some of that, doing that little activity then is quite tiring, isn't it? And that's the other thing that to bear in mind for these learners. Being dyslexic means that you're putting an awful lot of activity, a lot of brain activity going on to keep up with everybody else in the class, and often these children are very, very tired by the time they get back home. And again, this may be why lockdown has been good for some of them, where they've been able to take those rest breaks, to be able to take the movement breaks, do little chunks of things, do something else and go back to it, and it may well have helped them. So any of you who are parents, if you feel that the lockdown has helped your child, do let me know as well. I think it's quite interesting to find out. So things that we can do to be kinesthetic, to feel things. Now, any of you who are lucky enough to be having a beach holiday, writing things in the sand is very kinesthetic. And if you can write a letter in the sand and say the sound of that letter at the same time, you're doubling up that kinesthetic. Then you're looking at it, you're doing it, and you're saying it. So then it's also auditory. You can use things like Plasticine, you can use a salt tray. Things like that are very, very kinesthetic. You can also write on different textures. So writing on sugar, flour, sand, talcum powder, shaving foam, if you're very brave and adventurous. You can trace over letters with your fingers. Those letters could be made of wool, of spaghetti, of sandpaper. Anything like that is very, very kinesthetic. Things like, I use a lot things like wooden alphabet letters, but you can use magnetic letters as well. So if you can see the letter shapes, if you can feel the letter shapes, again, that's very kinesthetic. And this is from a lesson that I did for open and closed syllables, where we used a pencil to show the syllable division. We used the pictures for the open suitcase and the closed suitcase to show open syllables and closed syllables. And we worked out the words, and it was a very visual way of being able to show somebody what an open and closed syllable is. So for example, that lion, you've got the vowel sound there. The I is long because it isn't closed in by the consonant. So things like that, making it very visual really does help, I think, with learning. And these are some pictures which show children using sand trays, flour, Paint, that's lovely. That child is getting really, really messy with the paint. I must love it. And he is doing the letter A. Now, I would probably use the lowercase a and say the sound ah as I'm writing it. And you can put paint into jiffy bags as well, so that makes a nice feeling on the finger when they're writing the letter A. You can do anything really, and in a very visual, kinesthetic way like this. I think it's great fun. Children love it. If you are an auditory learner, then hearing your own voice is very, very important. So things like using your phone, your mobile phone, using it as a dictaphone and listening back to your own voice is a very good way of learning. So for some people who are doing exams, listening to their own voice will help them learn that passage, that poem, anything like that. Really, really good way of learning. Anything like repeating or echoing as well really helps that reinforcement also. If you are an auditory learner, then obviously you need to be able to do things like talking to yourself, talk to other people, listening to others. If you can teach someone something, then Professor Sharma says that's mastery of the subject, doesn't he? So being able to explain that is a really good way of showing that understanding. Debating, questioning, using mnemonics, using your phone to record your voice, as I said earlier, using clips from YouTube, sound effects, rhymes, jingles, raps, music, all of those things are very auditory. Things that are visual are charts, diagrams, pictures, like the mind map at the beginning, making it very colourful, using highlighter pens, using sticky notes as well. I just went in to do an assessment of somebody in a workplace this week, and they had lots of sticky notes all around their computer, lots of colourful sticky notes, very good. Using videos, DVDs, downloading information, really good way as well. If you haven't come across Lydia Stanton, she does very good cartoons to help with spelling. Again, very visual. So the word said, she's made it into a nice picture there. The word to, again, being able to remember those 2 cones for £1 might help help you remember the word to. So she's got really good books on special offer at the moment, I think, and they're very good. And you can see there at the bottom, she's used the shape of the word. If you're a visual learner, you might remember that D goes up or that T goes up, and you're remembering that shape of the word. And sometimes what I find with the children that I assess, they're sometimes relying on a good visual memory. They don't decode, they can't decode. And up to a certain point, they can rely on that visual memory. And then it gets to the point where the words are too long and they haven't got the strategies and they just, I can't read that, can't spell that. So always be careful of a child relying on their visual memory too much. In class, again, making things very visual, colourful, as much as you can, and instead of lots of writing, then that water cycle might stay in someone's mind much easier than a whole load of writing. So as much colour as you can. In the classroom, visual timetables really help, and also at home. There are lots of good places you can download visual timetables from, like Twinkle, and children really like those visual timetables, those visual representations of what they're doing in the day. Be careful to make it very dyslexia friendly. So I think at bottom there, it looks like they've used very shiny laminate, so that's not dyslexia friendly. And have a look at the work that the BDA do about being dyslexia friendly. They've got lots of good information there. So the use of fonts that are dyslexia friendly, Calibri, Arial, Comic Sans, they're all dyslexia friendly fonts. Not putting things on a lot of white background, so maybe the top picture there, a little bit less dyslexia friendly, a cream background would be better for it. And these things really do make a difference in the classroom. The environment is a huge area of difficulty for these dyslexic children. I'm coming across a lot more children who are very distressed about the noise around them, too much information on the classroom walls, which is distracting for them. Actually, again, one of the good things about lockdown is the children have been taken away from these big tables and they're sat often by themselves now, and they can actually get on with the work more easily. So again, if anyone has got any comments about that and whether or not that's made a difference in the classroom, do let me know. If you're an auditory learner, then listening to books is a really good way forward. So there are places like the Calibre Library and also the RNIB Bookshare, and I'll give you the address of that at the end. They have digitalised, I think it's 400,000 books, huge amount of books that they have digitalised for schools to access free of charge. And these are whole range of books, so they're textbooks as well as fiction, and allow the child to listen to a book rather than be stressed about reading things. Obviously, reading pens are very good as well, so you can stick some headphones in and just listen to a reading pen instead of having to read it. And mnemonics, obviously, a really good way of helping to remember things, like we all know big elephants can understand small elephants. But if you can get together a little tricky word pack for your child and get them to make up their own mnemonic, if they can make it as stupid, as silly, as comical as possible, it's a really good way of remembering that word. So I get little from Amazon, little white packs of cards, and you can make up tricky word packs then with them. You might have a B and a D on that tricky word pack because they may still have difficulty with reversing B's and D's. So they could have the B and the D in front of them when they're writing. Things like spacefem.com, it will generate mnemonics, silly mnemonics. If you've run out of ideas, then something like that may help you as well. So lots of things out there on the internet. The Nessie film as well there, that helps with mnemonics. And Nessie do lots of lovely little videos as well about what is dyslexia and helping children understand what dyslexia is. So I'll just leave that up for a tiny second longer in case anybody wants to take any of those down. Obviously, good old Plasticine, very kinesthetic, isn't it? And if you can roll it out and make letters, say the letter sounds as you're doing them. And again, very important that you teach your child the pure sounds. Again, for my assessments, I'm hearing lots of children who say m and t and f. Those aren't the pure sounds. They need to be saying them without the schwa. So m, p, t, very pure sounds. So they say those as they're rolling out the letters with their plasticine. It might be that you want to take things further with a reading pack. And again, with these little white cards that I get from Amazon, we start looking at the letters, the sounds. So on the back of the card, we draw a little picture, like, so it's lip, l. And the clue word, they say the clue word first, the sound after, and the clue word helps with the visual memory and then saying the sound. E-E-A is either dream E or head E. So they get used to that making two sounds, and the two lines at the top of the card indicate that it starts with a vowel. So often, a bit of a generalisation, but generally speaking, most dyslexic children are very good at drawing and art, and they love making up these little reading packs, carry them around with them, and they get very quick with them, and it just helps them with the sounds of the alphabet. And then you can start putting them together. So if you had a D card, you could make lead, for example. And we use the wooden alphabet a lot, and we make words with the wooden alphabet. We start picking out the vowels, and as you saw earlier, use it for open and closed syllables. As teachers, you can make things very visual yourself on the whiteboard, making sure that you use colour again, help the children remember what they need to bring in. Those of you who found it difficult with the clock going down, telling the time something, or concept of time, is often something that dyslexic children find very, very difficult. So not a clock like that, but actually something that had a little sand time or something on the whiteboard is a really good way of showing the passing of time, and that really helps as well. You can see that my presentation is on a very creamy background, so if you are working on a laptop or on a whiteboard, make sure you change the background colour from that white, and most children don't like black print on white background. Always ask your child whether or not the print's jumping about, or if you notice that your child is rubbing their eyes, or the child says that they're still using their finger to track words, check that they haven't got a visual difficulty. And if they do talk about things like swirls of print or rivers of print, see if you can get them an optometrist appointment to check for visual difficulties. And for some children, the coloured overlays are enough. For other children, they need the coloured lenses, prescription coloured lenses. You can make timetables very visual as well, can't you? And that really helps children to isolate what they're doing. And also it's good if you are at home, doing work at home, to make it structured as possible, and so that your child knows exactly what's there for the day, and put some fun things in as well there. I think this child's got quite a lot on for science and maths and things like that, but more fun things. But make sure that it's a range of different activities. Mind mapping, as I say, it's a bit of a generalisation that all children, dyslexic children, love mind mapping. They don't. Some children do respond very well to mind mapping. Others much prefer linear notes. But for those that like mind mapping, either to draw them themselves or use some of the assisted technology that's out there to do a mind map like this. And it's really good. It's a very visual way of improving the memory. And you can see there all the different things. It increases writing speed. It allows them to be creative, colourful, to organise and assemble all of their ideas and help them with planning. So lots of good things about mind mapping that will help them. For kinesthetic learning, obviously things like touch typing is kinesthetic. So if you have got terrible handwriting, your child's got terrible handwriting that's not legible, we normally say around about the age of 9 to start touch typing. And there's some really good programs out there like Touch Type Read and Spell, English Type Junior and Senior, which are purely for dyslexic children, or the BBC Dance Mat, which is for all children, and the BBC programme is free. So mind mapping is kinesthetic, sticky notes. I've got sticky notes on my computer. I do them on the computer, where they're actually in the computer rather than on the computer. Lots of practical activities. So things like making models, very kinesthetic, and help with you could do the Battle of Hastings as a model, for example. Any kind of movement, dance, role play is kinesthetic as well. Sequencing difficulties. These children often have sequencing difficulties with the alphabet. And actually what I find with dyslexic adults that I'm assessing, if I ask them what the letter is after M, they often have to go right the way through the alphabet from the start to tell me N. It's not automatic. So one of the first things to do is just check that your child has got that automaticity with the alphabet. These wooden alphabets are very cheap. They're not expensive, but the magnetic ones work just as well also. Putting out the alphabet, trying to do it into an arc, and then starting to pull out things like, you know, what are the vowels? Tell me the vowels. And you can colour the letters, different colours, colour the vowels, different letters to the consonants, those sorts of things. So working on the sequencing is really important. If they haven't got automaticity with the alphabet, there's a lovely a resource called the Active Literacy Kit, which is sold by Dyslexia Action, and that uses a picture alphabet to start with before you go onto the wooden alphabet, and that's a really nice resource. And you could teach quartiles. Dividing up the alphabet into 4 quartiles helps with dictionary skills, so using a mnemonic around that. All elephants nibble sausages. Things like dictionary are hugely difficult for dyslexic children, and the ACE dictionary is often a better alternative because it's grouped by sound in the ACE dictionary, and I think that's only about £10 from Amazon. But using mnemonics really helps, and I think somebody said that they used mnemonics for the 10 pictures, and it's a really good way of remembering things. So there are lots of things that will help. Linking things to the visual, doing a lot of overlearning, repeating things from the previous lesson, making that visual timetable. Posters on the wall help, but don't put too many on there because then it becomes distracting for the learner. If the learner is distracted by noise around them, then things like the noise reducing headphones really do help, and that can help them being focused on what they're doing as well. Dyslexia goes into lots of different areas, and it is on the same spectrum as ADHD, ASD, various other things like dyscalculia as well. But you will find that dyslexic children often do lose concentration, or what I've found is sometimes it's their way of concentrating. So a little boy that I was assessing was telling me that he always gets told off for looking out of the window, and the teacher will say to him, you know, Alex, what have I just said? And the boy will be able to tell her exactly what she's just said, and then he would get told off for being cheeky. But actually being able to look out of the window was his way of concentrating. And what you find is also children like to fiddle with something, don't they, often? Piece of plasticine, something like that really helps them. So in the classroom, clear, short instructions. If they have got that difficulty remembering things, then make it 1 instruction at a time, not 3 that they're going to forget. But if you are going to give verbal instructions, then back it up with something written as well, so that you've got the visual as well as the auditory. Some of the work, you can now get some stickers, can't you? Talking stickers for children's work, so that they listen to the comments that the teachers made rather than try and decipher the teacher's writing. So reduce the distractions, allow thinking time. If you have got a processing difficulty, then they have got that problem pulling information out of their long-term memory quickly, and allowing that thinking time allows them to get their thoughts into order and process what you're asking, and they'll be able to give you the correct answer then. But again, you know, these things don't just go away in adulthood. So an adult I was assessing last week was complaining about her line manager suddenly coming in and asking her lots of different things, and she just freezes. And he doesn't understand that she needs thinking time as well. Allow different recording methods and different methods of reading, listening to the books rather than always reading them, but also recording things down on a tape recorder instead of always writing them, allowing for a scribe, allowing different ways of recording that information down. It could be a picture, could be a cartoon strip, doesn't always have to be writing. Try and avoid copying from the board. What you find in the classroom is often the dyslexic nod, where the child is looking up at the whiteboard, they're trying to remember the sentence that they are trying to copy, they look down to copy it and they've forgotten what they have just seen. So they have to keep looking up and down, up and down, up and down, and you see this nod in the classroom. So if you can get information in front of them, make it very visual, that they do a closed procedure, or they do, the information is in front of them to copy, that really helps as well. Overlearning, repetition all the time, so that it does go in. And you know, with the pace of the classroom, all of the information that these children are trying to cram in from the national curriculum, I don't know if they have that opportunity for overlearning. And I'd be interested to know from any of you who are classroom teachers, if this is a really difficult thing to achieve. What I do find, for example, is spellings. There's huge long lists of spellings that these children have to learn. And because they're not doing the overlearning, they're having different spellings every week, they don't learn those spellings. They learn them just for that spelling test, and they've forgotten them for the following week. So if you've got the opportunity to reintroduce old spellings into the new spellings, that gives them that overlearning that will help them. Memory cards, like I said, the white ones, or you can get coloured ones as well, little memory cards that will just prompt them and help with their memory. Unfortunately, there's nothing that you can buy that will help with the memory. There's no resource or magic resource that I can tell you that will help with memory long term. But what the child needs to do is understand that that's a difficulty with them, and use different tricks to help them with their memory, which could be, like you saw earlier, it could be chunking things together. So chunking numbers together really helps, doesn't it? Chunking those animals together helps you remember them as well. Little sequence cards, and checking understanding, always checking understanding, getting the child to repeat back what you've said, so that by hearing their own voice, they have formulated what they need to do, and they've proved to you that they've understood what you've asked of them. And it may be that at home, the parent needs to help with the homework. As we said earlier, these children are often very poorly organised. And if it's anything like my son, he would come home with the wrong book. He'd have left his PE kit on the bus. So he wouldn't know what his homework was. Or his handwriting in his homework diary would look like some of your handwriting with those 10 pictures done with your opposite hand. So he couldn't decipher it. By the time he got back home, it was completely indecipherable. Now, obviously now, a lot of schools have now got Share My Homework, and parents have now got a much better idea with what they have to do. But they can help with scribing, with providing a dictaphone on the mobile phone, putting that information down verbally. You can use speech-to-text software now, which I've got Dragon, which is free on my laptop. So Dragon, naturally speaking, is speech-to-text software, and you can also get the other way around, which is text-to-speech software. So lots of these things are on computers and things now. There's a lot of assistive technology out there. There are huge amounts of resources to support multisensory learning now. So as I said before, the RNIB Bookshare or the Calibre Library are both free. Oh no, 600,000 accessible titles that are for parents and schools. So it's a huge amount there that you'll be able to access. The Active Literacy Kit, the little on the picture, the little map there is from the Active Literacy Kit, and children love it. These are some of my teaching resources. Toe by Toe, the little red book there, it's old, it's about 30 years old, but it still works and it's really good. The other book there, the blue one, is Units of Sound, and got the wooden alphabet there, and you can get that in lowercase and uppercase. The green book is a style book, S-T-I-L-E, and this is a little plastic case, and there are little tiles in the plastic case, and they make up different patterns. So the child knows if they've got the questions right because it's made the correct pattern. TTRS, Touch, Type, Read and Spell. Excellent. And Twinkle, I've got lots of free resources on there as well. And that's Lydia Stanton's email address there, and she's always very happy to help parents, classroom teachers with her resources. And as I say, I think she's got a special offer on at the moment, and lots of cartoons to help with spellings, very visual. So I think we've rattled through all the multisensory teaching, lots of ideas there, and so we've got lots of time for questions. I hope you've got lots of questions for me. I have got a little handout from today, so if anybody wants to contact me, there's my email address there and my website. Always happy to give you a little handout from today. Lots of more ideas about multisensory teaching ideas. So, you know, things like you can use things like a lemon, for example. Smell a lemon, smell things to help you with writing, help you with creative writing. That really helps. If you can stimulate all of the senses, that's even better. But hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea about some ideas for multisensory teaching and what it actually is. And hopefully that will help you all. So do send me any questions, do send me any comments about doing those 10 pictures as well. Anything that, any things that you've used as well during lockdown in a multisensory way as well.
Katrina, we've had a lot of thank yous already. We have got some time for some questions, so we'll try and get through as many as we can. First question, do you consider use of technology keyboard, is that classed as kinesthetic?
Yes, because you're touching the keyboard and you're often saying the letters as you write them on the keyboard. Obviously, as you get automaticity, you don't really know what you're doing. I mean, you don't know which individual letters, it's just automatic. But yes, it is counted as kinesthetic.
Brilliant, which could link on to, we've got two questions here around older learners. So we've got one from Lena about any tips about resources for teaching Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. And then we've also got a question from Annie around how do we make some of the multisensory strategies useful for FE and HE learners? So older learners, Katrina, what are your thoughts about our older learners?
I think next week we're going to be discussing study skills, and I think there's lots of multisensory ideas that you can put in terms of study skills, and that's often what they need. As they get older, you're not going to be able to necessarily start from scratch teaching spelling to an older learner, but there's lots of things you can do to help with reading, skimming, scanning, taking notes, making notes, that kind of thing, that will really support them. I think things like mind mapping is really helpful for older learners, isn't it? And I've forgotten the other part of your question. Other question, Donna.
Well, it was quite a big one. It was mainly just about older learners, and
Yes,
I guess what you said about technology, maybe that's a way to make
yes,
for
yeah,
our older learners
yeah,
kinesthetic as
definitely.
well. Regarding the Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, we've got this link then across into teaching languages, Katrina. So
Yes. So
Lena's
obviously
talking
making,
about teaching French. Is there
yeah,
any way that we can make that
yeah.
multisensory?
So obviously French is the worst language for dyslexic learners to learn. Spanish or German is seen as better, or Latin for learners. But if they are learning French, often they're very good at it because they're very good orally at things. So they're often very good at speaking it. It's the writing it that they find difficult. So again, making it multisensory, using those cards. If they're learning vocab, have little vocab cards with the English on one side, the French on the other, play games, making it visual, auditory and kinesthetic as well with the languages. But there are always, if you've got the access to the BDA book, which one am I thinking about, Donna?
Is this for language?
There's a chapter in it about languages. There's
Oh,
also
you mean dyslexia friendly
yes, yes,
strategies?
yes,
Yes, we can
there is,
put a link to that in when we share the recording
yeah.
for this session.
So there's a very good chapter in there about teaching in a very multisensory way for modern
Yes,
foreign
yeah.
languages.
And BDA, so British Dyslexia Association, who Katrina and I are also both connected to, as
Mhm.
well as Lexplore,
Yeah.
there is an e-learning module that's free around language based on some of work that's been done in previous years with government funding. So I'll pop a link in there. I think it was for
Yeah.
Lena who's interested specifically for that, but I'll put it in for everybody if you're interested as well, because it's always good to find out these things.
And also,
Sorry, go on,
sorry, I was just
Katrina.
going to say the BDA had a set of 10 books, and one of the books was about modern foreign languages and dyslexia. I think they're still sold by the BDA. They were £10. I think they went, yeah, were they still
Yeah.
£10? Yeah.
No, I think they might
Five?
be cheaper than that
Yes,
now.
I think they may
5.
be 5 now. Yeah.
I'll pop a link on for anybody who's interested. There's some great resources there, including some free resources too. Um, we have another question. Are there any particular reading spelling interventions that lend themselves more easily to multisensory approach for use in learning support? So again, this is at secondary school, Katrina, so this is for
Well,
older learners again.
Well, I think again that touch type read and spell program is very good because you're doing the kinesthetic for the touch typing, but also it's very you can build it around your curriculum, so you can touch type curriculum words. So if you're doing something around biology, you're typing osmosis over and over again. So it's going into your head about how to spell it, and it helps with reading as well. So those things are very good, I think, for older learners. Trying to think what else. I think Nessie is quite young. WordShark is quite young. There isn't so much for older learners really, apart from Units of Sound, which is a computer program which is sold by Dyslexia Action. But you are a bit limited with resources for older learners, I'm afraid.
Mm. Leslie said that she uses the corrective reading program.
Oh, I don't know
That
that
one
one.
that you're familiar with.
No,
Leslie, message back if you want
yeah,
us, if you want to share that with the rest
yeah.
of us, Katrina. We
Mhm.
finally found something that Katrina isn't aware of. That's very rarely does that happen. So well done, Leslie. Please do share back if we've got time. I'll read it out. Oh, Leslie's just said it is rather old, so that might be why.
Oh,
It's too old for us, Katrina. We're
no.
too young to remember.
Yes, yes, that's not good. But don't worry if something's old. It doesn't mean to say it's not working anymore. It's a bit like toe by toe. Still use these things.
Yes, yeah, that's good. And maybe we can find out a little bit and share.
Yeah,
Leslie's also just added Read Write Ink is also
yes,
very good
yes, of course.
as
Yes,
well.
Yes.
So we've had somebody ask, how do we encourage learning if our students won't necessarily use technology? I guess it comes back to some of those cards and things like that you were
Yes,
talking about.
yes, but making them engaged, helping them to, if they are doing the drawings themselves, it makes it easy for them to remember.
Okay. Another question, is the Hickey program any good?
Yes,
What are your thoughts on that?
yes. So Hickey is the original program. I did my training course about 20 years ago from Dyslexia Institute, as was, but that was based on the Hickey program. So the Dyslexia Institute literacy program is based on Hickey. So it all comes from the Hickey program. So,
Brilliant,
yeah.
that was a great question. Okay, so I think that's it for the evening. Thank you so much, Katrina, and to our listeners. We've had lots of thank yous already,
Oh,
Katrina. It's
good,
always
good,
brilliant to work with you in this way.
good.
I know you're very generous in terms of giving your time, so obviously your contact details are there for us
Please
as
do.
well.
Yeah, I'm always happy to answer any
And
questions.
I don't know if you want to say a final few words before we say goodbye to everybody.
Um, well, I hope you'll join me next week when we're going to be discussing study skills. So it's around supporting dyslexic students with study skills. I hope you'll join me.
Yeah, perfect. And we do too.
Yeah,
And we'll be sharing the recording with all our listeners so you can listen to this lots of different times. And we'll share some of the links as well we've chatted about during this broadcast. So that just leaves me to wish everybody a great rest of the evening from us here at Lexplore Analytics. And hopefully you'll join us for a future broadcast. Thank you so
thanks
much.
very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.